3 factors that will cause the economy to decline. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today, we will discuss those 3 things that will collapse the economy. So before we start the video, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please subscribe to it and press the bell icon. The entire so-called extended supply chain is, first of all, much longer than people realize. Second, each link in the supply chain has its own set of inputs and outputs to let it withstand the influence on the economy. It connects to the monetary economy fairly fast. We are able to discuss that as well. We have inflation, you know, that is evident to all. You have a Ford F-150 pickup truck, which cost $150 and used to cost $7 for a tank of petrol. Since the demand for gasoline in that case is inelastic, you must purchase it regardless of the circumstances or the price. You dislike having to pay more money. Observe it. At the gas station, you can observe inflation. You had to purchase it because, among other things, you had a business to operate or errands to run. However, it implies that in this case, you won't be going out to eat since the extra $75 you need to fill up your tank twice a week, say let's cost $150, will go towards something else. You won't need to purchase anything new for a concert, sporting event, or any other occasion. Therefore, demand destruction exists. Although it might not be at the petrol station, it is there everywhere else in the nation. Here then is the ripple effect. As a result, the economy as a whole is affected by the supply chain dysfunction, which in my example manifests as higher petrol costs. The result is a huge influence. Everyone looks at the conflict in Ukraine, the Russian sanctions that made it worse, the pandemic, the fear that followed, and the fascist public policy that resulted from all of that. Well, that only made things worse. But you can actually link it back to the Trump tariffs in 2018 because there are so many different types of ships: oil tankers, dry bulk carriers, other kinds of container cargo ships, etc. And because of that, I did some research on cargo shipments. We are aware of their exact locations and any gaps between them. With the exception of a few isolated pirates, we therefore have access to information about their whereabouts, destinations, and possessions. And one researcher kept track of it, allowing her to display the breakdown starting in 2018 with the introduction of Trump tariffs. The 3 countries that produce the most soybeans are China, the United States, and Brazil. Because they require the protein, China is the largest importer of soybeans. There isn't much there. As a result, China began purchasing soybeans from the United States in an effort to balance its trade with the country. We will purchase their soybeans, which will reduce the gap somewhat. Trump also imposes a tariff on China. China claims to be purchasing soybeans from Brazil, but all other purchase orders have been transferred to that country. That's obviously not a phone call. You must rebuild ships. You must increase your power capacity. You need to establish transit routes connecting farmers with ports, etc. And the folks who do that are actual people working for real businesses. They do not desire a 6-month agreement. They demand a 5-year contract. That was completed. However, you've now forced ships all over the world to alter port entry and embarkment, for example, on a 5-year cycle. And so, they're currently attempting to serve what the United States is doing with all the soybeans. Well, we looked at and the Netherlands has them, so we're sending them to the Netherlands. Again, you must jumble the vessels. You won't be visiting the Panama Canal any longer. You're leaving the port of Houston among other places. It serves as a practical illustration of the influence the OCC has in Washington as a result of its tariffs against China. But now, you're rushing the world trade. Again, that took 30 years to construct. The same is true of sanctions on semiconductor companies. Once more, COVID, the pandemic, and Ukraine all contributed to its escalation. Therefore, we are where we are. But the point is actually that it's a dynamic, intricate system. The supply chain is difficult to surpass from a broad perspective because it affects almost everything. However, to address Kim's claim, supply networks have always existed. Supply chains have always existed, but they have specific partners, and transit channels. There are certain norms of the road. For lack of a better expression, a few other nations trade with one another because they are not rivals. China, however, will be left alone. China. Furthermore, they claim that the United States is severing its ties to China. That's accurate, but China is separating from the United States. It works both ways. This is comparable to, say, a disastrous breakup. China also wants to leave just as much as we do. However, China will need to establish its own supply network. What partners will it have? Will they procure natural resources from Africa and contract out the production to South Asia? Life will therefore continue, though it will be far less productive and more resilient. That represents the trade-off. Things are breaking down because after science got going, you know, the math, the air, the computing power, and everything else, what was the point? What did they want to accomplish? They were attempting to cut expenditures after all. As a result of the decreased labor cost, we'll all be in China. We basically obtain our natural resources from somewhere else, you know. Cross-docking is a term used to describe this. Cross-docking, what is it? It's sort of like when a chart shows up in a warehouse and is used to unload, store, and load another truck with cargo. The Fed's balance sheet went up to roughly $9 trillion at the height of the pandemic panic, dating back to 2020, as you are aware. Though $9 trillion, they had to get used to saying trillion instead of billion, and since then, it has decreased little. However, other individuals argue that given that the Fed printed $9 trillion, how can there be a dollar shortage or liquidity crisis? The solution is that you must comprehend how the money system functions and the sources of genuine money generation. It doesn't originate with the Fed, and this is the reason the Fed printed the money. That much is true. However, the Fed purchases bonds and treasury notes from the major banks' primary dealers. They call, and as I stated, the key is probably turned. Where is the actual currency that drives the economy? Where did that originate from? If there is, you know. If it does at all, it originates from banks because they are capable of doing the same thing when they grant you a loan where you conduct business and ask you to open a checking account to receive a $1 million loan. Where did the money come from? They put $1 million in your bank account and just said, you got the money. Right. So, they now have a loan from you with the note as an asset and your deposit as a liability. Great money, Sebas. Similar to how the Fed operates, with the exception that private trade is the intended setting, and that money can truly be put to use. If you run a business, you must pay well, purchase good, make investments, and so forth. However, not much of that is actually occurring. The M1, M2, which are various types of money, have very low velocity and low turnover rates. The Fed's desire for them to have $0 reveals that they don't even understand what money is, as seen by the fact that they have 3 different varieties. The fact is, though, that nothing has changed for quite some time. But the important thing is right here. $9 trillion may only be $5.6 trillion on the balance sheet at the moment. There is a lot of money. However, the notional value of the derivatives that are not on the bank's balance sheet is $1 quadrillion. For those listeners who may not be familiar with the term quadrillion, that is 1,000 trillion. Therefore, if you have to maintain derivatives for 1 trillion, the Fed's $9 trillion won't get you very far. How does that operate then? The main culprit then is the banking industry, which engages in off-balance sheet swaps, swaptions, and other futures and forwards. And yes, we don't need to list them all because they are trading firms, hedge funds that are interested in them for speculating or hedging, sovereign wealth funds, or other institutions. A vast network of participants is present. The larger boys are these. These institutions, which collectively have a market capitalization of $1 trillion, include Temasek, BlackRock, and the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund. Okay, so your off-balance sheet derivatives total is $1 trillion. By the way, you need to read the footnotes when you see this on a bank balance sheet. You must be aware of what you are viewing. How is that backed up? Not 100%, not even close, but perhaps 1% or 2%. You had to put up some margin money to play, but after that, you could have a lot more off-balance sheet. Okay, so which type of collateral works the best? It depends on whether there is a liquidity problem or not, whether they are optimistic or pessimistic, and if they believe that things will go well or start to fail. As a result, the quality of collateral must increase as things become more challenging, which is the stage we're in right now. As a result, banks are now telling one another, I don't want your mortgages. I don't want your foolish corporate bonds. Get me treasury bills, which are short-term, very liquid, and have a maturity of 1 year or less. A lot of them are 4-week bills, 8-week bills, and 6-month bills, which are all very short-term and very liquid. I just want 10-year treasury notes. The best form of insurance is them. Each bank is responding. That's what I want. Okay, so you are now Barclays Bank, Deutsche Bank, Unicredit, Credit Suisse, Bank, a significant Japanese bank, etc. The bills will be delivered to us. You can either purchase them at an auction or via a dealer. To purchase a treasury bill denominated in dollars, you must have dollars. The treasury holds auctions, or you can obtain them from the Fed. Therefore, this explains why the dollar is so powerful. We have a massive budget imbalance, trillions of dollars in cost, bailouts, freebies, and a 131% GDP ratio. Everyone is claiming, $31 trillion in debt, etc. Why is the dollar so powerful? The reply is that it has nothing to do with what I just said. Because everyone in the world needs dollars to purchase treasury notes to support the balance sheet of the untraceable 1 quadrillion derivatives, the dollar is strong. And it's true, this is a major backstage development. And in terms of how the actual global monetary system functions, this is true inside baseball. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you like this video, please hit the like button.